Hi there, this is Vahid from VRF Education channel. Today I'm going to teach you how to use positioning system in CSS. There are a couple of ways that you can set how elements should be positioned on the web page, and in order to have good knowledge about creating responsive pages, you should know about this positioning system alongside with Flexbox and grid layout. I talked about those two, Flexbox and grid layout, in other videos, and you can watch them if you want on my YouTube channel. And maybe you said that I'm not gonna code it using pure CSS. I might use some other libraries such as Bootstrap to handle these situations for me. Yeah, that's correct. But in order to have a good knowledge about responsive pages, you should know about the semantic of these things such as positioning, flex, and grid layout. So I suggest to watch this video in order to know how these things works. In a typical document, we have a normal flow of elements. There are two types of element, inline element and block level element. For inline element, we can put multiple elements in one row, for example, multiple spans. But for the other elements, such as paragraph element or div tag, they are block level. It means that if I put a div on a page and then I want to put another paragraph after it, they just occupy all the space in the horizontal axis. And the normal flow is that you should put all the elements on the top of each other for block level elements, and for inline it's obvious that they are getting beside each other, until then the row is filled. So by positioning system, we can change how elements are positioned on a web page. By default, all elements have a static value for their positioning system, and it's said that, okay, nothing is important. You should stick to normal flow of document. It means that, for example, every div should be placed on each other, every block element should be placed on top of each other. By using relative, fixed, absolute, and sticky, we can change this system and somehow make it more flexible. They all have some characteristics for themselves that gives us a lot of flexibility, and we can use them. So very soon we want to check them in practice by using some simple example in order to understand what they do really for us and how can we use them in designing our web pages. So let's check them in practice. Well, let's go to VS Code and start our discussion about different options we can use for position attribute. As you saw already, there are 5 different options that we can use for this property, and each one has the different characteristic and different output for us. And you should be familiar with them if you want to create some nice look and feel and also responsive web pages. This is one part that you should know. You should know also about Flexbox or grid and some stuff like that. Now we just want to focus on position attribute. Before we begin, I just created 2 files, index.html, that contains some boilerplate code that we want to use for our discussion. Here we have a parent element, a div with the class of parent element, and 3 child elements. There are also some divs, and we mainly focus on this one, main element, and we want to change the position of this element, and we use these 2 other siblings for clarifications, that you can see what happened when we change the position attribute and the other attribute values. And also I installed an extension here, preview on web server. You can install it and then just right click inside your HTML file and go down to the bottom of the menu and use preview on side panel. You can see the result of changes live on the side panel. Now let's go to style.css. Here we have nothing, and we want to add some CSS classes to just change the position of the main element. The first option, that is the default value for this property, is static. The element is positioned according to the normal flow of document if we set the static for their position attribute. If you look at here, we have 2 different divs. They each placed on a separate row because they are blocked or block level, and each one has its own space and also own row. And this is the default behavior of static value for position property. And with a static attribute, some other attributes such as left, top, right, and bottom are not going to affect the position of that element. What does it mean? Let's create a class main-element. Here I want to explicitly set the position to static, and this is the default one, but I want to mention it explicitly. And here I just want to change the left attribute to 10 pixel, or let's change it to 30 pixel to view it more obviously. And again, to change the bottom one, the bottom attribute to again 30 pixel. And I want to change the background color to blue. And also add a padding to 10 pixel. And let's do the same thing for sibling element. Let's also create a class for sibling elements, and then padding to 10 pixel, and let's add background color to light blue, and also change it to yellow because blue is somehow. So there it is. We have 3 different divs. Although I set the left and bottom attributes explicitly, they did not affect the result, and they did not change the position of this element, because this is static positioning and it remains unchanged in the normal flow of a document. The next option for position is relative. So what's the difference between relative and static? If we just commit these two attribute and save, we can see the output doesn't change, because if you don't use left, bottom, and top and right attribute, relative is somehow is the same as static. The elements remain in the normal flow of the document and some space allocated to that element. But the main difference is that we can use left, top, bottom, and right attribute to change the position of the element with regarding to the position that it gets in the normal flow of the document. So if I saved it, you can see the element move to left 30 pixel, and also the bottom move 30 pixel to the top because of these two values. And the reference of these changes are the location that this element got in the initial flow of the document. So we can change the position of relative element with left, top, bottom, and right attribute. But again, take care about it that the initial position that allocated for this element remain unchanged, and this is somehow reserved for this element, but I am going to change its position or add some offset to it. This is the main function of relative for position. The next option is absolute. So what's absolute mean? We saw that relative are going to offset the element from its initial location, but elements with position of absolute are positioned relative to their parent elements, and the elements also removed from the normal document flow. So what does it mean? If I saved it, you can see that these two elements now get together, and the second one just put after the first one. And again, this has absolute positioning, and as you can see, it has 30 pixels from the top of the document and 30 pixels from the left of the document. So I said that it's going to use its parent as the reference and position relative to its parent. But there's some important things that you should take care. The direct parent of this element is this div class. We use our nearest parent in the hierarchy that has some positioning except that static for the to use as a reference. So here the div element use static position. The next one, body also use a static position, and then we had the HTML tag, and it has it use also static positioning. So here we have no choice to use HTML as our reference. So when we said we want to align this element to the HTML, then we just offset from the bottom and left of the document. So what if I change this class? Let's create another class for this one, and I want to change the position to relative, something except static. So you can see now I am here 30 pixels from the bottom and 30 pixels from the left of my direct parent, because it now has some position rather than static. So you should take care about this item when you are going to use absolute positioning. Absolute positioning going to set the position absolutely relative to one of the parent in the hierarchy that has a position value rather than a static one. And I want to mention it one more time. When we use absolute positioning, unlike relative positioning, there would be no any pre-reserved space for this element in the normal flow of a document. Take it in your mind when you want to use absolute positioning. The next option is fixed. Fixed somehow similar to absolute, but when we use fixed, we are not looking for any parameters in the hierarchy that should have some positioning rather than static. When we use fixed, it always aligns itself or offset the elements from the HTML tag, the main tag of the whole page. So you can see I'm now, although my direct parent has a position of relative, but it doesn't matter. I just positioned myself using the HTML tag as a reference, 30 pixels from the bottom and 30 pixels from the left. So let's add some text to some items to the main, to the body in order to have some scroll bar here. Let's grab some lorem ipsum text. Wait a moment. Let's create another development here, and I want to grab some lorem ipsum text here. Now you can see I have a lot of text here, and the scroll bar appears, but even if I scroll the page, this item remain fixed, 30 pixels from the bottom and 30 pixels from the left of the screen or the page. And this is good for some scenarios when you want to have something fixed on your pages. For example, go to the top bottom can be used using this positioning. You can always put that button here. When it clicks on that button, go to the top of the page. And this is the functionality of fixed positioning system. Now let's get rid of these. And now let's go to the last and the most important one. Sticky is somehow a combination of a relative and fixed positioning system. It says behave like a relative position element until a certain scroll point, and then change your position to fixed. What does it mean? Let's change it to sticky. And then these two are not important. We can get rid of them. And I saved it. Now, as you can see, this element looks like a static or relative one. It just appears in the normal order of the document or normal flow of the document. Now, let's add some data before and after these elements. I just grab a couple of lorem ipsum paragraph. Let's copy from the web, and I just add another div here. There's a couple of paragraph here, and I need to add some before the elements. So here again I have div, and let's change it to generate one paragraph, lorem ipsum, and paste it here. So this is the result. we have some information, and we have a scroll bar, vertical scroll bar. If I just scroll the page, nothing happens. It's just like ordinary page with relative or static paging. So this is the default behavior of sticky if we don't use some pointing system. For example, I said top equal to 10 pixel. What does it mean? It says behave like a relative item until the top of this item equals to 10 pixel. So if I scroll it down till this item top equals to 10 pixel, then it gets fixed on that position. What does it mean? This is the result. So this item, because is on the top, because top of this item equals to 10 pixel, it just fixed here on the top of the page, and when you scroll, everything goes behind it. And if you want to have somebody look at it, you can change it to 0 pixel. Now it completely sticks to the top of the page, and it seems that all the things goes behind it. And you might have seen this on some website. And if I just scroll up to the top of the page, when it comes to have this item again in the normal order of the page, it changed the positioning from fixed to relative. Now you can see it's somehow like relative. Now, how can I stick it to the bottom of the page? What if I change it to bottom? It says that whenever the bottom of this item reached to the 0, then fixed it. So because I have not enough text before this item, it never happens. If I scroll, the page, it's as usual, and it's somehow like we have a relative for this element or static for this element. But what if I just add or duplicate this one 3 times? Now, as you can see, draw lots of text before this item, and because it reached to the bottom of 0, it just fixed here, stick to the bottom of the page. Now if I scroll, you can see all the items goes behind this item till it gets in the relative position, and we want to see it in its real position. And now its its bottom position is something different from the 0. But if I scroll it to the top again, now it again the bottom equals to 0, so it fixed to the bottom of the page, and all the things get through behind of this element. And this is how a sticky works. It's sometimes useful if you want to stick something to the top or bottom of the page with regarding to the scrolling the content. And overall, this is 5 different items that we can use for positioning our elements with their different features and their differences. You should be familiar with the position in order to create some nice look and feel and also responsive web pages. I hope you enjoy this video.